42 bullet holes. That is the count on one small, fragile biplane after a single mission. 42 holes, punched through canvas and wood, through maps and helmets, yet the pilot and navigator emerge unscathed. It is 1943 on the Eastern Front, a place where survival is a daily gamble, and these two women have just defied death. They are part of a unit the Germans call Nachtsitzen, night witches, a name whispered in fear and frustration. But how does a unit, flying obsolete crop dusters, unarmed and unarmored, become one terrorizing the most formidable army in Europe? The answer lies in the courage of individuals, and the relentless spirit of a young woman named Nadezhda Popova. The year is 1942. Deep within the Soviet Union, a new force is taking shape, one that will challenge the very conventions of warfare. At its heart is Senior Lieutenant Nadezhda Vasilyevna Popova, a squadron commander in the newly formed 588th Night Bomber Aviation Regiment. Born on December 17, 1921, in Shabanovka, a village near the Donetsk coalfields in Ukraine, Nadezhda Popova is barely 20 years old. As an adolescent, she dreamed of a life filled with music, song, and dance, even considering a career as an actress or a doctor. But at 15, her path irrevocably shifts when a small aircraft makes an unexpected landing near her village, igniting a fervent passion for aviation. Without her parents' knowledge, she enrolls in a gliding school. By the age of 16, she has completed her first parachute jump and her first solo flight. Despite initial parental opposition, she perseveres, earning her flying license and graduating from the Kherson Flight School at 18. Becoming a flight instructor herself. But the peaceful skies she once envisioned for her life are shattered in June 1941, with the brutal German invasion of the Soviet Union. The war becomes intensely personal for Nadezhda Popova. Her brother, Leonid, is killed at the front. Her family home is seized by invading German troops and converted into a Gestapo police station. She witnesses firsthand the horrific sight of German pilots strafing fleeing women and children in her hometown, an image that fuels a burning desire for revenge and a fierce sense of patriotism. She volunteers immediately to become a military pilot, but the Soviet government initially bars women from combat roles. It is only in October 1941, under immense pressure and a desperate need for pilots, that Joseph Stalin authorizes the creation of 3 all-female aviation regiments, spearheaded by the renowned aviator Marina Raskova. Nadezhda Popova joins the 588th Night Bomber Aviation Regiment, a unit that will soon become legendary. The challenges facing Nadezhda Popova and her fellow pilots are immense, extending far beyond the immediate threat of German forces. From the outset, their very presence in combat is met with skepticism and outright resistance, even within their own military. Many male comrades look down upon them, doubting their capabilities and questioning the place of women on the front lines. Living conditions are primitive, and new equipment is rarely, if ever, allocated to the all-female units first. They are issued hand-me-down male uniforms, often ill-fitting and cumbersome, with oversized boots that must be stuffed with rags or newspaper to allow them to function. This institutional resistance is as formidable an obstacle as the enemy itself. Their aircraft, the Polikarpov Po-2 biplane, is a relic of another era. Affectionately, or perhaps ironically, nicknamed kukuruznik, meaning crop duster, these planes are primarily designed for training and agricultural use, not combat. They are constructed primarily of plywood and canvas, making them incredibly vulnerable to enemy fire. A single tracer bullet can ignite the aircraft like a sheet of paper. The cockpits are open, exposing Nadezhda Popova and her navigators to the brutal cold of the Eastern Front, where frostbite is a constant threat. These Po-2s are stripped of anything deemed non-essential to save weight. They carry no radios, rendering communication with ground control or other aircraft impossible. There is no radar, forcing pilots to rely solely on maps, compasses, and their own keen eyesight in the darkness. Crucially, they carry no defensive weaponry, no guns for self-defense against enemy fighters. And perhaps most starkly, to further reduce weight, parachutes are often not carried. The low operating altitudes of their missions also mean that even if they had parachutes, there would be insufficient time for them to deploy effectively in an emergency. If hit, the pilot and aircraft would go down together. The Po-2's top speed is a mere 82 to 90 knots, or approximately 150 to 167 kilometers per hour. This is significantly slower than the stall speed of the advanced German Messerschmitt Bf 109 and Focke-Wulf Fw 190 fighter planes, which stall at around 120 miles per hour, approximately 193 kilometers per hour. This speed differential, while seeming like a fatal disadvantage, will later become an unexpected tactical asset. Each Po-2 can carry only 2 bombs, one under each wing, with a combined weight of less than a ton, usually around 300 to 350 kilograms. To have any significant impact, the pilots must fly multiple sorties every night. No one believed it was possible for such a unit, flying such antiquated machines, to make a difference against the might of the Wehrmacht. They were about to be proven catastrophically wrong. The 588th Night Bomber Regiment, with Nadezhda Popova as a squadron commander, is deployed to the front lines in June 1942. Their initial missions focus on the Donetsk coalfields, Nadezhda Popova's childhood home region, where the fighting is fierce. The regiment's primary task is harassment bombing, targeting German encampments, supply depots, and troop concentrations under the cover of darkness. Their strategy is born of necessity and ingenuity. Each night, the women fly in formations of 3. 2 aircraft act as decoys, deliberately making noise with their engines and drawing enemy searchlights and anti-aircraft fire. They twist and turn wildly, making themselves difficult targets, while the third aircraft, engines cut, glides silently towards its objective through the dark. The only sound the Germans hear is a soft, eerie whooshing of wind through the biplane's wings, a sound they will soon liken to a witch's broomstick. Once over the target, the bombs are released by hand, and the engine is restarted for a hasty escape. Then, the plane switch rolls, repeating the deadly ballet until all 3 have delivered their payloads. On June 28, 1942, Nadezhda Popova flies her first combat mission. The reality of war hits hard and immediately. 2 of her comrades' aircraft are shot down, their crews killed. There is no time for grief. Nadezhda Popova is immediately ordered to fly another mission. It was the best thing to keep me from thinking about it, she later states, steeling herself for the relentless grind of nocturnal warfare. The regiment operates with incredible intensity. Each 2-woman crew, a pilot and a navigator, is expected to complete a minimum of 8 sorties per night, with each mission lasting between 30 and 50 minutes. They return to their temporary airfields, often just rough clearings near the front, where ground crews, also entirely female, quickly refuel the planes, reload the bombs, and make any necessary repairs, sometimes within minutes. Then, it is back into the night. On August 2, 1942, Nadezhda Popova experiences one of her closest calls. While on a day reconnaissance mission near Cherkassk, her Polikarpov Po-2 is attacked by Luftwaffe fighters. The flimsy biplane is no match for the speed and firepower of the German aircraft. She is forced to make a harrowing emergency landing. Separated from her unit, she joins a motorized column of retreating Soviet soldiers, attempting to find her way back. It is among these wounded and displaced troops that she encounters a fighter pilot named Semyon Kharlamov, who is reading a copy of And Quiet Flows the Dawn. This brief, unexpected meeting in the chaos of war will later blossom into a lifelong partnership. The psychological impact of the Night Witch's relentless attacks begins to take its toll on the German troops. They are kept perpetually awake, their sleep constantly interrupted by the sudden, silent descent of bombs. The constant threat, the inability to predict where or when the next attack will come, erodes their morale. German soldiers begin to refer to the Soviet female pilots as Nachtvixen, night witches, a term initially meant to be derogatory, but one the women embrace with pride. Rumors spread among the German ranks that these Soviet women have been injected with special chemicals to give them superior night vision, or that they are criminals forced into combat as punishment. The German High Command becomes so concerned that an Iron Cross, one of the highest military honors, is promised to any pilot who manages to shoot down a night witch. Some accounts even mention a cash award of 2,000 Wright marks. What does it tell you about a fighting force that they would offer such a reward for downing an enemy whose aircraft is made of wood and canvas? Tell me in the comments. As the war progresses into 1943, the 588th, now officially the 46th Taman Guards Night Bomber Regiment, moves with the front lines following the retreating Axis forces. They participate in crucial campaigns, including the liberation of Crimea and the fighting in Belarus. Nadezhda Popova, with her growing experience and leadership, rises to the rank of deputy commander of the regiment. It is the night of October 23, 1943, near the Kuban bridgehead. Hauptmann Klaus Richter, commanding an anti-aircraft battery, wipes sweat from his brow despite the cool autumn air. For weeks, these Nachtsitzen have been a persistent, infuriating menace. His men are exhausted, their nerves frayed. Just last night, a series of silent attacks on their forward supply dump destroyed 3 ammunition trucks and damaged a fuel depot, causing a massive fire that burned until dawn. Richter had received orders from Oberkommando der Luftwaffe's regional headquarters: prioritize elimination of slow-moving, low-altitude nocturnal aircraft. Report all confirmed kills immediately. These pests are severely impacting troop readiness and morale. His radar operators, however, report nothing. The primitive Soviet biplanes are too small, too low, too slow to register on their screens. The only warning is the distant, almost imperceptible, whoosh of wind, followed by the sickening thud of bombs. His men fire wildly into the darkness, guided only by the fleeting beams of their searchlights, often hitting nothing but empty air. They curse the sewing machines, the droning sound of the Polikarpov engines a constant reminder of their vulnerability. Richter orders stricter patrols, but how do you patrol against ghosts that appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly? He suspects a new, cunning Soviet device, perhaps an advanced stealth technology, rather than the reality of simple, silent gliding. The psychological toll is immense. His soldiers are sleeping in shifts, but never soundly, always on edge, waiting for the whisper of the witches. The regiment continues its relentless bombing operations. Nadezhda Popova herself once returns from a mission with her Polikarpov Po-2 riddled with 42 bullet holes, not just in the aircraft's fabric and wood, but also through her helmet and the map she holds. Miraculously, she remains unharmed. Upon landing, she turns to her navigator, Yekaterina Ryabova, and exclaims, "Katya, my dear, we will live long." This moment encapsulates the sheer audacity and luck that often accompanies their survival. The Night Witch's operational tempo is staggering. In 4 years of conflict, the 588th Night Bomber Regiment collectively flies an estimated 23,672 to 30,000 combat sorties. They drop over 3,000 tons of bombs and approximately 26,000 incendiary shells on German targets. This constant, low-level harassment, though often not inflicting massive casualties in a single strike, serves its primary purpose: to disrupt, demoralize, and deny the Germans rest. The cumulative effect is devastating to enemy morale. The regiment follows the retreating German forces across Belarus and into Poland. It is during this relentless push westward that Nadezhda Popova achieves a personal record that highlights the incredible endurance required of these pilots. In one single night, over Poland, she completes an astonishing 18 bombing sorties. This means taking off, flying to the target, dropping bombs, returning to base, refueling, reloading, and repeating the process 18 times within a few hours of darkness. To put this in perspective, American bomber crews in the European theater were typically rotated home after completing 25 missions. Nadezhda Popova, in just one night, completes more than 2/3 of that total. Consider the physical and mental strain of flying 18 combat missions in a single night in an open-cockpit biplane. What does such unwavering dedication demand from a person? Tell me in the comments. The conditions remain brutal. The women endure freezing temperatures in their open cockpits, battling not only the enemy but also the elements. They often suffer from frostbite, yet they continue to fly. The skepticism from some male comrades persists, as does the harsh reality of their primitive living arrangements. Despite these challenges, the women of the 588th forge an unbreakable bond, a sisterhood born in the crucible of combat. They are all volunteers, many having joined after losing family members or homes to the German invasion, driven by a deep sense of patriotism and personal vengeance. The Night Witch's missions are not just about dropping bombs, they are about psychological warfare. The Germans are forced to keep searchlights and anti-aircraft guns manned constantly, burning precious fuel and exhausting their crews. The quiet approach of the Po-2s, followed by the sudden explosions, creates an atmosphere of pervasive fear. Soldiers often refuse to leave their dugouts to even smoke a cigarette, fearing that any visible light or movement might betray their position to the unseen attackers. Nadezhda Popova's leadership is not merely about piloting skills. It is about inspiring her squadron through sheer example. She leads from the front, consistently undertaking the most dangerous missions, often as one of the decoys drawing fire. Her aircraft is shot down several times throughout the war, but she never sustains serious wounds, a testament to her flying skill and perhaps a remarkable stroke of fortune. By early 1945, the Soviet offensive is pushing deep into German territory. The 46th Taman Guards Night Bomber Regiment, with Nadezhda Popova still at its forefront, continues its relentless operations. They fly over the Oder River, striking targets closer and closer to Berlin itself. The war is nearing its brutal conclusion, but the intensity of the fighting remains undiminished. One particular mission stands out as a testament to their courage and the versatility of their antiquated aircraft. Nadezhda Popova flies a daring relief mission through intense enemy fire over Novorossiysk. Her objective? To drop vital food, water, and medical supplies to Soviet forces trapped in Malaya Zemlya, a small, fiercely contested bridgehead. This mission is not about bombing, but about sustaining life, an equally perilous undertaking. Her aircraft is once again riddled with bullet holes, but the supplies reach their desperate recipients. As the final weeks of the war unfold, the Night Witches find themselves operating over the heart of the Third Reich. The sky over Germany is a maelstrom of anti-aircraft fire and fighter patrols, but the Po-2s, with their unique tactics, continue to slip through. The sheer number of sorties flown by the regiment, and by Nadezhda Popova personally, speaks volumes about their dedication. She completes a total of 852 combat sorties during the war. A truly astonishing number for any pilot, let alone one flying in such conditions. If you were a young woman facing these odds, flying these planes, would you have found the courage to continue, night after night? Tell me in the comments. It is the night of April 30, 1945. The Battle of Berlin rages, a maelstrom of steel, fire, and human will. The air above the collapsing German capital is thick with smoke, flak, and the roar of artillery. Nadezhda Popova, now a seasoned squadron commander, guides her Polikarpov Po-2 through the chaos. Her target? German troop concentrations attempting a desperate counterattack near the Reichstag building, the symbolic heart of the Nazi regime. The mission is fraught with extreme danger. German anti-aircraft batteries, though depleted, are still firing with a desperate ferocity. Searchlights stab through the night, illuminating the sky in blinding white beams, each light a finger pointing to certain death. Nadezhda Popova's Po-2, a fragile silhouette against the inferno below, is buffeted by the concussive force of exploding shells. Her navigator, Yekaterina Ryabova, works feverishly, calling out coordinates, her voice tight with tension but steady. They are flying at an incredibly low altitude, barely above the rooftops, to ensure accuracy, a tactic that makes them vulnerable to even small arms fire from the ground. The wind whips through the open cockpit, a biting cold that penetrates their worn flight suits. Below, the city is a landscape of shattered buildings and flickering fires, the sound of battle a deafening symphony of destruction. Nadezhda Popova cuts her engine. The sudden silence is jarring, a brief, terrifying calm before the storm. The Po-2 glides, a phantom descending from the darkness. The whooshing sound of the wind through the wings is unmistakable, a final, chilling prelude for the German soldiers below. She spots a cluster of enemy vehicles, their outlines barely discernible in the flickering light. Target acquired. Yekaterina Ryabova shouts over the wind, her hand ready on the bomb release. Nadezhda Popova holds the plane steady, her eyes fixed on the target, her hands firm on the controls. Every fiber of her being is focused on this single, decisive moment. The years of training, the hundreds of missions, the countless close calls, all culminate in these few critical seconds. She pushes the release lever. 2 bombs detach, plummeting silently towards the ground. A heartbeat later, 2 thunderous explosions rip through the night below, followed by secondary blasts as ammunition or fuel ignite. A brief, searing flash illuminates the target area. Before the German gunners can react, Nadezhda Popova restarts her engine, the familiar drone a welcome sound. She banks sharply, twisting and turning, evading the belated, desperate bursts of anti-aircraft fire that now track her. The little biplane, against all odds, climbs away from T. He Inferno, its mission accomplished. The Reichstag is within their grasp, and the war, after years of unimaginable sacrifice, is finally drawing to a close. The fighting in Berlin concludes just days later, on May 2, 1945, with the raising of the Soviet flag over the Reichstag. Nadezhda Popova, along with other surviving members of her regiment, stands amidst the rubble, a witness to history. In a symbolic act of triumph and defiance, she takes a pencil and, like many other Soviet soldiers, inscribes her name on the scarred walls of the Reichstag. On February 23, 1945, before the war's end, Nadezhda Vasilyevna Popova is awarded the highest honor for bravery in the Soviet Union, the title of Hero of the Soviet Union, along with the Gold Star Medal and the Order of Lenin, for completing 737 sorties. Throughout her service, she also earns 3 Orders of the Red Banner, 2 Orders of the Patriotic War First Class, and the Order of the Patriotic War Second Class, among other distinctions. Her dedication and valor are recognized nationally, with her image appearing on the cover of Komsomolskaya Pravda and in numerous other Soviet publications. The 46th Taman Guards Night Bomber Regiment, the legendary Night Witches, is formally dissolved in October 1945. Nadezhda Popova returns to her hometown, not to a quiet life, but to a hero's welcome, complete with a marching band and flowers thrown over her car. She marries Semyon Kharlamov, the fighter pilot she met during her emergency landing in 1942, and their union lasts until his death in 1990. Their son, Alexander, follows in their footsteps, graduating from the Air Academy and later becoming a general in the Belarusian Air Force. Nadezhda Popova herself continues to contribute to aviation, serving as a flight instructor for nearly 2 decades after the war. The Night Witches collectively flew an incredible 23,000 to 30,000 combat sorties, dropping over 3,000 tons of bombs and 26,000 incendiary shells. They achieved this with minimal casualties for a combat unit on the Eastern Front, with approximately 30 to 32 women losing their lives due to combat and other causes. Their exploits became legendary, a testament to courage, ingenuity, and sheer will in the face of overwhelming odds. Nadezhda Popova passes away on July 8, 2013, at the age of 91, in Moscow. Her legacy, and that of the Night Witches, stands as a powerful reminder of the extraordinary contributions of women in World War II, often overlooked or downplayed in traditional historical narratives. The very unit that struck such terror into the hearts of German soldiers was barred from participating in the Grand Victory Parade in Moscow because their slow-moving Polikarpov Po-2s were deemed unsuitable for the procession. This unexpected fact underscores the lingering institutional biases they faced, even in victory. If this story moved you, if you think these women deserve to be remembered, leave one word in the comments: unseen. Subscribe for a new forgotten story every week.